Hi there. My name is Megan. So today I'm just going to be doing your intake. What is your name?
I'm Barry.
Barry. Nice to meet you. So we're kind of going to run over a few things first, kind of the legal logistics of counseling. So I am being supervised by a licensed professional counselor. That's why we are recording our session today. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Awesome. So basically everything that you do say in here is confidential. There are a couple reasons why we would break confidentiality. So one would be a subpoena. There would also, there's ways to get out of that subpoena, but it's usually a long legal battle, but there are ways to get out of that. Also, on top of that, there is if you're a harm to yourself or to others, as well as, any abuse that might be happening with a child, as well as any elderly abuse over the age of 65. Does all of that kind of make sense to you?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. Well, so let's kind of just get into things. Why are we here? What are we doing?
Well, really, I feel kind of lost in life right now. I don't know what to do. I'm like trying to kind of progress with I'm a CSI
Okay.
at the police
It's
station.
a hard job.
It is. You definitely see a lot of like kind of freaky things, and especially in this city.
Freaky things, what do you mean?
Like you'll see stuff that just doesn't humanly make sense. Like, you'll see people being killed by, like unworldly things, like giant electricity in the middle of nowhere, like
Okay.
as if someone like somehow had superpowers to like shock them and kill them, and or like a random tornado in the middle of downtown that just appears and then disappears super quick.
It's very odd. Kind of feels like, you're not the only person witnessing this, right?
No, there's a lot of different witnesses out there, and
Okay.
like news articles and all that kind of stuff, but just seeing the damage afterwards and like the death afterwards, it's kind of intense.
Well, right. So, two things. That sounds incredibly traumatizing to see people, electrocuted out of nowhere. People kind of being thrown around by a tornado and looking at, the dead bodies afterwards. That's got to be traumatizing. And on top of that, I also want to make sure that, like you're not seeing things that aren't there, or, like there are other CSI members that are seeing these things, correct?
There's not any other like CSI members, but there are like other
Forensic
policemen,
teams, stuff like that.
forensics.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sadly it's not all in my head.
Okay.
I think it'd be easier if it was, but it's all real.
Okay. Being in my position, I just want to make sure that that's,
Of course, it sounds crazy.
Right.
Speaking about it, so.
Right. So we're feeling a little lost in kind of the career and the things that are happening.
I mean, career, love life, family life, like there's just not a lot of stability anywhere, and it's just kind of, I don't know, and like I 9 months ago I got struck by lightning, and I went into a coma.
Okay.
For all of those 9 months, and there's so many times where like all the monitors and stuff just stopped working for me, or they think it stopped working because it was just like flatlining, but I was somehow still alive.
Okay.
So like, but yeah, anyway, when I came out of the coma, I kind of had to like restart life a little bit, like start from base one. I had to readapt to this new world where there was all these like, I don't know, it sounds crazy, but superpowered things going on, superpowered people like going on crazy bank robber sprees and all that.
Did it seem like crime had just kind of jumped through the roof when you came out of that coma?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's because I'm specifically or directly connected to the police precinct, or if it's because like just that's what it is. But
okay.
It's made it really hard to just like adjust in my job to how to like handle those situations and how to like come to those conclusions, because before I got struck by lightning, I was really good at my job, and I felt like I was making a good steady progress in pretty much all areas of my life, and then kind of out of commission for about 9 months, and it's just like starting over, and it's really just kind of concerning for me, and I just don't know how to handle it, I guess.
Right. And coming out of that coma, do you feel like you had anyone that you could rely on? Because I mean, it's a lot coming out of something that you haven't been away for 9 months to kind of jump into this new realm of things. Like, did you have any support, friends, family, anyone?
Yeah. So halfway through the coma, I got transferred to this laboratory facility where they could kind of better check on me and monitor me.
So not a hospital. Just want to clarify.
At the first half it was, and then
Okay.
the second half, no, not a hospital. It was
Okay.
pretty unorthodox that I got moved actually, but
Okay.
but it saved me, so worth it. Um, as far as support goes, like I had the people that I woke up with. They're actually great people that were taking care of me, and I've actually started becoming pretty good friends with them.
Okay.
Um, my adopted family has just been super supportive to me and helpful. It's my adopted father Joe, and then my best friend and basically sister Iris, who have just never given up on me, always supported me, always been around, and yeah, they were still there when I woke up and still just helping.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I mean, it's nice to kind of feel like you can rely on people, especially, those people who did save your life, as well as those people who are saving you in kind of like an external way of like your family, you know. So what does like that home dynamic look like for you? The support of, step or adoptive dad?
Yeah.
Okay. And sister Iris?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I don't live there anymore. I moved out, but it's still always an open door. Like I can always go back. I mean, it still feels very much like a family. Like it's been a little bit weird around Iris. So I've kind of been in love with her since I was a kid, since before I was even like living with them, and I felt like there was some moves that some steps that I was taking to kind of like work up to talking to her about that and seeing like what possible future there might have been there. But when I came out of the coma, she was actually like engaged to this other detective.
Oh, a completely different thing that you would have. Okay.
Yeah, so then it was kind of like not knowing what to do there because, I mean, she had kind of been my primary focus, like romantically,
Yeah.
and then that was just kind of gone out of nowhere.
It's got to be a lot.
Yeah, it was super kind of confusing because, I mean, even before the coma, again, I thought we were kind of like heading that direction, and then
All of a sudden
She's
you're
kinda
out and
moved
it's
on.
a different life.
yeah, it's
Okay.
definitely kind of just confusing. I've been very confused since I woke up, really.
Okay.
Um,
And I mean, that's fair for you to be confused. It was 9 months that you were out and gone, and now it's re-jumping back into life. So it's okay to be confused. It's more than okay to be confused.
yeah. I have to kind of remind myself that sometimes because, again, I used to have everything together, and then like it's literally a whole new world now.
Right. And sometimes do you feel like people expect you to not feel confused and not feel overwhelmed by all of these new changes that are happening?
I don't think so. I feel like it's mainly what I'm putting on myself, like pressure wise. I feel like, everyone else is kind of wanting me to take it a little easier and just kind of gradually come back into life, come back to work and relationships and all that. But I don't want to do gradually. I just want to like jump back in and get back to
What you were doing before.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So, going back to the family dynamic, we have adoptive dad and, adopted sister, sorry. So, what age do you know were you adopted?
So I was with both of my parents until I was 11.
Okay.
And then one night, someone broke into our house and murdered my mom.
Oh, wow.
And my dad, he's a doctor, so he went to help his wife who was bleeding out on the ground, and the murderer had just like disappeared, like vanished like a flash before our eyes, and because he had the knife and he had her blood on his hands, like everyone just immediately assumed that he killed her.
Yeah.
And so he's actually serving a life sentence in Iron Heights prison right now. but I know that he didn't do it. But so, mom died, father in prison. I just got. They took me in
Okay.
at that point.
That's heavy. That is a lot. So, at the age of 11, were you going to any court visits? Were you going to, any of those trials?
I was at really just one trial. Joe wouldn't let me go to a lot of trials or visit my dad in jail for a while. But that wasn't even like Joe trying to like keep me away. That was my dad telling him to keep me away. I just
Okay.
didn't agree with it. But I mean, it was still pretty rough, even that one that I went to. And like the therapy that I had to go through was just really odd because everyone wanted to just jump on the assumption that
Your dad
My
had
dad.
murdered your mom.
yeah,
Right.
that my dad murdered my mom, and I know for a fact that that's not true. But and I didn't then, or I didn't think that he killed her then. So therapy back then was just kind of like it wasn't helpful because it wasn't like they were trying to see my point of view. They were trying to help convince me that my dad
Right.
had killed my mom.
So you felt like going through that therapy, you were being manipulated into, this system and believing that your dad was the bad guy.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I can kind of see where they're coming from. I mean, the murderer just like vanished, and there was like no other leads or anything like that. But I mean, I was just an 11-year-old kid. No one cared about my testimony or anything like that.
Right. And do you still talk to your dad? Do you feel like you have a decent relationship with him?
Yeah, when I became an adult, I started going to see him more often, and like, still love him. I see him whenever I can, like at least once a week. He recently asked me to stop coming and seeing him and to try to move on with my life, but I just don't know that I can really do that.
Does your dad know about the coma?
He does, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's aware of that, and I've explained kind of where I'm at mentally now to him, and I think that's partially why he's wanting me to keep away, because he wants me to just go and get back into life, kind of work at my job, and so I can like kind of progress there, and romantically, he kind of wants me to like, if I can't have Iris, he wants me to like move on and go he really just wants me to live life, but
Right.
it's just I don't know that I can really do that in the way that he wants me to.
Right. I mean, before you had gone into a coma, it seemed like you were really securing your job, securing your love life, securing your family kind of sense. And now it feels like it's kind of all being ripped away at once. So I can see how easy it is to feel lost and to kind of feel like you're backtracking. But looking forward, we still have a good relationship with stepdad Joe or adoptive dad Joe, and we still have some sort of relationship with Iris, not necessarily romantic, but do you feel like any of these relationships that you have are kind of getting in the way, or anything with Iris is kind of getting in the way of you pursuing anyone else romantically, or?
I don't think anything's really getting in the way. I'd say if anything, it would be kind of everything going on with Iris getting in the way. But even that's just because like we would just have conversations still and like talk, and it really felt like we were kind of back in that place and back on
Right.
that page of moving towards something more for us. And I actually had a moment where I kind of just put everything out there for her and threw out how I feel to her, and it wasn't reciprocated at all. And she kind of told me like I need to like move on and everything. And then I kind of tried to do that. I kind of tried to move on, and I went out on a few dates with this one other girl, and it was like Iris was jealous, and it was like she didn't want to be with me, but she didn't want anyone else to be with me.
But she wanted to be with someone else?
She wanted, yeah, because she was engaged to this other detective.
That doesn't seem like that's very fair.
No, and I mean, she never claimed that she didn't want me with someone else, but I mean,
You could feel
that's
that
exactly
kind of
what it
energy, right?
yeah. So I feel like I might have to just like take a step back from my friendship with Iris, which is really hard because she's been my number one person my whole life, really.
Right.
But I definitely do think that that is getting in the way and holding me back some.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's hard not to let those things hold you back. Like, you know, there was a person that I thought I was going to be with. All of a sudden, we add a coma into the mix of that. And now it seems, you know, she's engaged to someone else, but she still has some sense of jealousy. And you don't know kind of what lane you belong in of like, do I keep pursuing Iris or do I kind of move forward? But it's the jealousy aspect, and it's kind of like this relationship might feel like it's bleeding into the other one.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely it. I mean, pretty much as soon as I feel like I've reached a kind of moving on point and like I can just be with other women, it feels like I get those same signals from Iris, like, hey, I don't actually want you to be with someone else, or she tries to pass it off like, hey, they're just not good enough for you or whatever, but like, you know, like we said earlier, it feels like she doesn't want me to be with anyone else.
Right.
Type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So it seems like we do have some good positive things in our life. You know, work kind of seems like it's going okay, except for all the weird occurrences that are happening of the tornado, the lightning strike, you getting struck by lightning. It's a very low percentage of actually getting struck by lightning, so that's
Yeah.
very crazy to
It's
me.
in my lab too, actually.
Oh, it was indoors?
Yeah, through the skylight, it came down and hit me, and then knocked me back into my shelf of chemicals. And yeah, and actually things have physically kind of been weird since I've woken up, so I don't know if that has something to do with it too. Or
Can
not,
you
but-
explain some of those physical characteristics?
Like, I don't think it'll make a lot of sense, honestly, but
Okay.
like I can just
Well, I'll hear you out.
like sometimes my hand will just start like shaking, and it's not even like shaking or like jittery, it's like it's moving at the speed of light. And I sometimes have it where I can like start running and all of a sudden I'm like 2 blocks down, and I don't really know what to make of that.
Those are some very crazy physical characteristics that you are experiencing of just feeling like constant sense of like caffeine overload. Is that kind of maybe it?
Somewhat. I mean,
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand.
of course, yeah. It doesn't feel like I'm blacking out or anything like that. It's just like I'll start like moving one direction, and then all of a sudden it's like everything's like flying past me, and only a second goes by and I'm like just multiple blocks down the direction I was
Okay.
heading.
And are other people seeing you do this? Is this
I don't think anyone can see me, actually.
okay? So, you know, we've kind of evaluated some of your, you know, your personal problems. We've got some physical characteristics down. Do you feel like we have any family mental health issues that we should be concerned about?
I mean, everything. Really, I don't have like a whole ton of like great memories about that kind of stuff from when I was a kid about my parents. It seemed like everything was stable and like everything was good. I haven't heard about any major mental health problems in my family history.
Okay.
But again, I was only 11, and I haven't actually seen my dad in a few weeks because
He's
has
kind of
to-
pushing you back out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so, you know, we talked a little bit about previous counseling as a child and how that seemed pretty counterproductive and actually not at all what you wanted, especially, you know, with your mom passing away and your dad being thrown in prison, you know, people trying to persuade you that your dad was in the wrong. Have you received any other counseling, like post getting out of the coma, or anything beforehand to talk about like these issues with Iris, or anything recently?
Nothing really. Nothing ever since like the court therapy from when I was
Okay.
a kid.
And okay, and so why now are we wanting to start counseling?
I
Like,
think
why
I'm,
did it feel right?
I think I'm just kind of looking for some guidance, or some level of just stability to stand on and like build my new life up from.
Okay.
It went down. And like build my new life up on, because I just don't feel like I have that stability now.
Okay. So, what kind of goals do you see yourself having for therapy or counseling or whatever we're planning on doing here?
I think I want to have. I think I want to learn how to better like prioritize
Okay.
my time and my like with my job versus personal life versus like any work that I'm doing at the laboratory where I woke up at, because I still kind of go back there and help them out with some
Okay.
things.
And do you feel like you have a hard time separating that time?
I do. It definitely feels like the work at the lab gets in the way of most other things.
Okay. What's another goal that we have for ourselves? Prioritizing our time better, kind of fitting in like me time to kind of.
Yeah,
Okay.
some of that. I also kind of just want to find. I kind of want to find a piece of closure on my mom. I guess I haven't really given up or let that go.
Okay.
I've kind of got like a secret little like board tracking all these kind of strange occurrences that have gone on, that are like similar to my mom, like just a weird strange occurrence where something happened.
Okay.
And it's really just gotten me nowhere, so I think it might be time to just move on from that and let that go.
Okay.
But
So
that's-
maybe setting something up with a grief counselor,
yeah,
focusing on, how do we move past this grief? What is like some tools, maybe some coping skills that we could learn to kind of move past that. All right. And give me one more goal.
I want to just move on from my life with Iris, or my
Okay.
ideal relationship with Iris.
Okay. And are you still wanting to have Iris in your life, or do you feel like that might get a little too complicated?
I do want her in my life. I think at this point in time, though, it seems like it's just too complicated and too emotionally draining.
Okay.
'Cause it's just a back and forth all the time, and I just never know where she stands, and I don't like being in the dark on that. I think if I separate myself from her for a while, let her live her life and have her engagement, and then I live my life and meet someone, start dating someone, then maybe go from there and maybe kind of reconnect some. But I definitely don't think we're at a healthy point right now with that
Okay.
relationship.
Okay. So, coming out of the coma, have you been taking any prescribed medication that might kind of interfere with anything?
Not that I know of, really. Not that I know of. I don't think so, no.
Okay. Or I'm going to rephrase the question.
Okay.
Are you taking any medicine currently?
No.
Okay.
We're just gonna go with no.
Okay. So we kind of established, like we have our family supports. We may be moving away from talking to our dad a little bit more. But do you feel like once life gets started again and you kind of have more of a sense of stability, we kind of work on those goals that we set, do you think you would want to go back and see your dad and kind of let him know how everything's going?
I totally would. I don't even want to stop seeing him now, but he's really just pushing for that for me.
Okay. And how do those conversations go with him trying to push you out?
I mean, we've had him all my life,
Okay.
kind of, because he's always wanted me to just, in his words, forget about him and just move on with my life. But
That's really difficult when
can't.
he's your dad,
it is hard. I know it's all coming from a great place, and I know that it's all out of love, and he thinks that he's holding me back. But I don't know. I mean, if I leave him and stop seeing him totally, then who does he have?
Right.
Like, he's got no one else except for the other prisoners in there, and who knows what could happen someday.
Are Joe and your dad friends
They
by
are.
chance? And does Joe ever go and visit your dad?
He's a cop. He'll go and see him every now and then. he can kind of get in there a little easier than I can, just because he's an actual detective.
Okay.
I mean, yeah,
They're pretty good friends.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's good to kind of have that still same connection with, with Joe and your dad. Like, even if you were to kind of listen to your dad for a while, not that you want to or anything, but Joe would still let your dad know kind of what's going on in your life. But I do have a question with, you trying to move on from Iris. Do you feel like that's going to interrupt any any conversation or any communication with Joe at all?
I don't think so. I mean, I
Okay.
see Joe mainly at work.
Okay. Are Joe and you co-workers? With him being
Sort
a
of,
cop,
yeah.
you're CSI. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, different departments, but we still see each other a lot and work together on a lot of stuff. Yeah, I have a really solid relationship with Joe, and it can definitely be separate from our relationship with Iris. Like, it's not dependent on that or anything.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's awesome to hear that you'll still have at least two people that are on your side. Your dad being a little more difficult to communicate with, but Joe being able to see him at work,
Yeah.
kind of let him know what's going on in your life.
And I mean, I have my friends at the lab too that are supportive. And everything,
Right. Right. And what does that relationship look like with them? Is that purely for work? Is that purely for kind of just hanging out, enjoyment, or
A little bit of all of it.
okay?
I help them out on different projects and stuff that they're working on, and kind of different um, mysteries, if you will, that they're trying to solve with a lot of like this kind of crazy stuff going on.
Okay.
But then it's also just like hanging out and just talking about life with them too.
Okay. Well, so moving forward, so from what I'm hearing, your current situation is that we're a little lost. We're feeling a little confused in our life. And we have, people that we can depend on. Joe, Iris, if we really need her to be there, but it feels like we're kind of pushing towards the no pile. And, we can rely on Dad, although he may not want us there, and our lab friends. Feeling confused coming out of a coma. I think that that's awesome that you have a very good support system, people that will listen to you and you can rely on them for things that you may need, and just kind of helping you through. Do you feel like you've had any good kind of productive conversations with them?
I think so. I feel like I've had some. I feel like yeah.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. There is just a few things. I have never heard of anyone struck by lightning within a building. I do have to tell you that does seem a little odd to me, and that's just from a clinical standpoint. In no way, shape, or form am I trying to say I don't believe you. And the super speed at light speed, it seems a little not something I'm up to speed with. So I would like you to go a little bit more in depth with that.
I just can move fast. It's really weird. I don't fully understand it. Honestly, that's what a lot of my kind of work at the laboratory is with them. Is like they're kind of trying to help me get a grasp on what's going on, and kind of also testing the abilities of what I can do. And
Okay.
there's like a special super treadmill that we have that I'll run on, and I am actually getting up to like 500 miles an hour.
That is incredible. Wow.
It's very weird. I mean, it's cool. It feels insane, like nothing you could ever even think of. But it's definitely kind of scary
Right.
too. Like I don't know what to do with it. Like if I just hide it for the rest of my life, or maybe if I.
It doesn't just ever
Help
spontaneously happen.
It happened more spontaneous when I first woke up.
Okay.
But I feel like I'm working on getting it all under control, and like it's happening a lot less spontaneously. Like I'm
Okay.
getting a lot better at controlling it.
So your lab partners also see you running at these high speeds. They understand that you are running at these high speeds.
Yeah.
Do they have any other kind of abilities like you may?
Not that any of us are aware of.
Okay.
And I mean, again, it sounds crazy, but we have like the actual like documentation or like the data that we've been collecting from me, and like it's all backed up as
Okay.
reality somehow.
Well, I've never heard of anything like that before, so it does catch me a little off guard. Um, so I think that that's awesome that, those are the people that you can be around so you don't feel like you're going crazy or anything like that. But just kind of running through some of the diagnostic stuff, I just want to make sure, you were saying that you were feeling lost. Do you feel like there's, a lack of interest in kind of day-to-day activities that you have?
The normal day to days, I would say so.
Okay.
I feel like, especially with this new like kind of super speed, if you will, like that's taking up a lot of my like focus and a lot of my time.
Okay. That absolutely makes sense. Do you kind of have like not random, but like fears throughout the day that something awful's gonna happen? I probably would, because you're seeing these horrific things happen of random lightning strikes, random lightning strikes on you, tornadoes. Like, do you ever have like that fear that something bad is always gonna happen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like whether it's something happening to me and me like losing control out of nowhere, or if it's some other like meta powered human just showing up and like destroying a place, or you know, using their powers for crime or anything like that. Like it's definitely a big concern of mine.
No, that absolutely makes sense. Do you feel as if you are kind of, losing interest or like having a hard time watching like TV or reading a book or anything that, like maybe writing a lab report? Do you feel like you lose interest or any desire to do that?
I don't think so. I think I'm generally still pretty like happy and in control of my mind and my thoughts.
Okay.
It doesn't feel like I'm going off the rails at
Okay.
all, at least that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Um,
So we're more or less just feeling a little more down than usual, of like that lost, confused.
just a little down. It's probably more anxiety than
That makes
any
sense. With the
sadness.
fear of losing control, the fear of other awful things happening that you've seen. Going through all these traumatic experiences with your mom passing away, your dad being thrown in jail, you know, seeing horrific murder scenes like that, or I don't even know what to call those, but natural disaster scenes, like it's traumatic and it's scary, like having the thought of this could happen at any given moment to someone else. Even going into a coma of having to restart your life again, like that is definitely anxiety inducing. Like it's scary stuff. So I just want to validate your feelings of, yes, like it's okay to be anxious about those things, but I think the goals that we've set up of, managing our time better, being able to like focus on different relationships other than Iris and kind of removing her from our life a little bit more. I think they're all surrounding you and the positivity that you can, move forward with in your life. So I think those are all great goals. I think that, knowing in mind of the way that you're feeling, not feeling depressed or, any of these other kinds of mental illnesses, but we can focus on anxiety, and we can pinpoint the anxious feelings, as well as knowing that we probably should see a grief counselor, probably in addition to a regular kind of sort of counselor, or even meeting with me, although I'm not a licensed professional counselor. But we could continue to see each other for just like regular day-to-day things, kind of those feelings of being lost, and I can get you set up with an actual LPC to talk about grief. It is a very hard topic to kind of have that conversation about, because grief is unavoidable. At one point or another, we are all going to unfortunately pass away, so it's not an easy topic to discuss. But if, moving forward with me and moving forward with another grief counselor, if that's something that you have any interest with, I can get you signed up right now, set up some time for next week, same time, somewhere around there.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
we can do that.
Awesome. Well, It was very nice to meet you, Barry, and I will see you next week.